The sound of fingers snapping is not polite, it is sharp. It is demanding, it is the kind of noise meant to remind you where someone thinks you belong when it happens inches from your head. It stops being sound. It becomes intention. I did not turn around, not because I was scared, because I was busy. I was leaning over a digital blueprint, mapping a cooling bypass that kept 30 floors of servers from cooking themselves alive during summer. Red lines. Blue lines, power flow, heat load, redundancy, loops, a fragile nervous system made of glass and current. One mistake, and everything above us would collapse. Into silence. I designed that system. I negotiated it. I signed for it 3 years ago when this tower was just steel and ambition. The snapping came again, faster, louder, closer, like a metronome set by someone with no rhythm. Hey, IT kid, earth to IT kid. I exhaled slowly. I am a 24-year-old guy from Ohio. I wear a clean jacket, not a uniform. I do not carry tools. I do not answer tickets. I was sitting at that table because the light helped me think. I turned my chair. Can I help you? The guy in front of me was young, rich, confident, loud, a fleece vest worth more than my first year of college, a title that meant nothing, director of something visionary, which usually meant his last name mattered more than his skills. The wife. I is trash, he said, waving his arms toward a glass room full of men staring at frozen screens. We are pitching investors in minutes. Fix it. I breathed again. I am not your support. If you have latency issues, submit a request. He laughed loud, sharp, cruel. I do not submit requests. I tell people what to do. You have a laptop. Fix the internet. I told him I was busy. I told him I did not have admin access to his network. That was the spark. He slammed his hand down. Coffee rattled. Voices stopped. An open office can go silent faster than a courtroom. He yelled about entitlement, about money, about how his family paid for this place. Then he pointed at the door. Get out. You are done here. I am firing you. I did not freeze from fear. I froze from curiosity. He really believed that he believed authority came from volume. I looked at him. I looked at the people pretending not to stare. I looked at the folder under my hand. That folder held the renewal that kept this floor alive. You are firing me? I asked. Yes, he said proudly. Get out. I stood. I closed my laptop. I capped my pen. I left the folder on the table unsigned. Understood. I said. I walked to the elevator, slow, calm, every step measured behind me. He celebrated. He thought he had won. He had not won. He had pulled the wrong wire. The elevator ride down was smooth, of course. It was. I sign off on those systems too. In the lobby, the head of security nodded, asked if everything was good upstairs. Not anymore, I said 10 minutes later. I was across the street, drinking coffee, watching glass reflect the sky above me. Things began to unravel. I did not need cameras. I knew the pattern because I had written it. And somewhere on the 37th floor, a man was about to learn the difference between loud power and real power. The question was not if things would break. The question was how fast. What happens when the person you fire is the one holding the building together? By the time I finished my coffee, the building had already started to feel it. Not alarms, not chaos, just small discomforts, the kind that make confident people irritated. I was not upstairs, but I knew exactly what was happening because towers like this do not scream when they are hurt. They whisper. On the 37th floor, the manager arrived, smiling, a man who still believed paperwork could save him. He carried celebration in his posture, a bottle, a stamp, good news, folded into his jacket. He walked into the glass room. He saw the empty chair. He saw the unsigned folder. He asked where I was. The answer came too fast, too casual. Oh, him, the kid with the attitude. I fired him. Silence does not always sound quiet. Sometimes it sounds like lungs forgetting how to breathe. The manager blinked, asked again, slower. You fired who the reply was confident, dismissive, proud, the one who could not fix the wife. That was when reality entered the room, not gently, not loudly, just heavy. The manager explained, stumbling, sweating, that I was not staff, not support, not replaceable, that I was the one who owned the agreements, the one who controlled the infrastructure layer, the one who decided what stayed alive. The room shifted, faces changed, smiles cracked. Someone opened the folder, read the name, read the title, and the celebration turned into dread. Down on the fourth floor, behind steel doors and humming machines, I unlocked my office, the real office, the one without windows, the heart of the building. It smelled like cold metal and quiet authority. Monitors lit up as I sat. Systems waited. I was not angry. Anger wastes energy. I was precise. I opened the tenant profile, scrolled, found the line, negotiation terminated by tenant representative. Checked the box, first adjustment, elevator priority gone. They would wait like everyone else. Second, freight access revoked, heavy equipment would now be a personal problem. Third, cooling priority. This one mattered. Servers run hot. People forget that they think internet is invisible, weightless magic. It is not. It is heat, and heat always collects its debt. I set the cooling loop back to base level, not dangerous, just insufficient. Legal, clean, professional. I leaned back. Upstairs, the first complaint came in smart glass. Not responding, doors acting strange. Then another. Packets slowed, calls froze, meetings lagged. I watched numbers climb, temperature rising degree by degree. An email arrived short, demanding, hey, things are broken, fixed. It no apology, no recognition. I archived it. The phone rang, building legal. They asked how bad it would get. I told them the truth, as bad as physics allows. They understood. By late afternoon, the floor smelled wrong, plastic, sweat, stress. People left early, called it remote work. But remote requires network. By evening, only the loudest remained, fans buzzing, temp climbing. I went home, cooked, slept. Buildings remember how they are treated. So do the people who keep them alive. By morning, the locks would stop recognizing faces. The servers would protect themselves. The lights would stop trusting motion. And the man who snapped his fingers would finally understand the building was not attacking him. It was simply no longer helping. When comfort disappears quietly, who do you blame first, the system or the person you underestimated? Morning came without urgency. The city woke up, the tower breathed, but one floor stayed heavy. I arrived early. I like watching systems wake, graphs stretching, power loads balancing, air moving where it is told. At the lobby turnstiles, a crowd had formed, badges swiped, red lights answered again. Confusion grew, loud. Security stayed calm. Rules are rules. Then I saw him, the snapper, the director. The voice that thought volume was authority. Wrinkled clothes, no sleep, eyes wide. He saw me glide through access without pause. Green light, seamless. He lunged forward, yelling my name, accusing, pointing. Security stepped in, steel arms, neutral faces. I turned slow. I did not lock you out, I said. Your credentials require validation. You have no validation. Fix it. He screamed, I have a meeting. I checked my watch, 9 sharp. Are you the authorized representative? I asked, because from where I stand you look like someone without access. The elevator closed. His voice cut off mid-sentence. Upstairs, floor was silent. Dark, hot. Servers had chosen survival. They powered down gracefully, protecting themselves. The lights stayed off. Motion sensors had nothing to talk to. On the 4th floor, the conference room waited. No windows, no view, only truth. They arrived one by one. Lawyer, first. Manager, second. Father, third. And finally the air was different, no snapping, no shouting apologies arrived, quickly clumsy, rushed. They offered explanations, stress misunderstandings. I listened. Then I placed a single page on the table. This was the old agreement voided. They reached for it. I pulled it back. The capacity was gone, sold, allocated. The room changed again. Questions turned sharp, accusations flew. You sold our network. I sold available inventory. They demanded reversal money, double contracts. Do not bend to regret. They asked what remained: base, internet base, power base, cooling enough to exist, not enough to dominate. Relocation was suggested quietly, desperately. The father stared, finally understanding. You are starving us out. He said no. I am respecting your decision. The meeting ended without victory, only survival plans over the next days. The move began. Boxes, sweat, stairs, freight access was busy. Maintenance, safety, their empire left in pieces weeks later. A new tenant arrived, polite, prepared, respectful. They brought coffee, asked questions, signed documents. The building responded immediately. Lights, bright, air, cool, bandwidth. Clean. Months passed. I sat again on the 37th floor. Same skyline, different energy. A request came in for more power, handled properly. Someone joked about snapping fingers, laughed, learned. I smiled. Systems work best when respected. Somewhere else, a man waited for a file to load, watching a bar crawl, learning patience. The tower hummed, balanced, alive, and I returned to my quiet office behind steel doors where real power never makes noise. The loudest people rarely control anything but silence. When it finally answers back, people think revenge is loud. It is not real. Consequences arrive without announcement. They slip in like temperature change, barely noticed until breathing feels wrong. By the second week, the 37th floor had become a rumor. Empty desks, dark screens, a place people avoided talking about. The building noticed. Buildings always do. Every tenant has a rhythm. Arrival times, elevator demand, power curves, noise patterns. That floor lost its rhythm, and when rhythm disappears, efficiency follows. I spent my days in the 4th floor core, behind steel, behind noise, where the building tells the truth. Graphs do not lie, they only report tenant activity. Down badge, access failures, stabilized server load, non-existent. Meanwhile, another line rose steadily. A different floor, different tenant. The competitor quiet, prepared, grateful. They used bandwidth responsibly. They submitted tickets. They brought donuts to security. They asked before touching anything. And the building rewarded them. One afternoon, the former manager came by, nervous, apologetic. He said the father was furious. He said lawyers were circling. He said threats were coming. I nodded. Threats require leverage. They had none. The lease penalty arrived first. A clean number, 7 figures, paid in silence. The move out followed, slow, embarrassing. They dismantled their empire with hex keys and sweat, piece by piece, down stairwells under watchful cameras. I watched everything, not with joy, with clarity. This was not punishment. This was physics. You remove support, weight falls. One day, the snapper was gone, reassigned. New city, new title, smaller building. I checked. Copper lines, shared cooling, no redundancy. Some lessons are portable. Months past. The tower adjusted, breathing easier, balanced. New faces filled the elevators, new laughter, new confidence. One evening I stood alone in the conference room, lights dim, city glowing. I remembered the snap, the sound that started it. Such a small noise, such a large cost. People ask me what I do. I never say infrastructure. I say I make things work. Because when they stop, everyone notices. The new tenant hosted a launch party, invited the building staff, security, maintenance. They thanked everyone by name. Respect feeds, systems disrespect starve them. Late that night, as I shut down my monitors, a message appeared. Unknown sender, short, awkward. It was him. No anger, no demand, just a sentence asking if I could recommend a provider in his new city. I stared at it, then archived it. Some bridges do not need burning, they collapse on their own. I turned Off the lights, the building hummed steady, satisfied. Tomorrow would be quiet, productive, uneventful, which is exactly how power prefers to exist. You never hear the moment authority changes hands until the silence tells you it already has. Time smooths chaos not by forgiving it, but by replacing it. By the third month, no one mentioned the old tenant. Their name faded from elevator conversations, from whiteboards, from memory. That is how buildings erase mistakes. They keep functioning. I spent more time training the new teams, not because they needed supervision, but because they wanted understanding. They asked why systems were layered, why redundancy mattered, why permissions existed. I explained patiently, because curiosity is a form of respect. The tower responded in quiet ways: fewer alerts, cleaner logs, balanced loads. Security reported fewer incidents. Maintenance reported fewer emergencies. Power usage stabilized. Cooling efficiency improved when people work with a system instead of against it. Everything relaxes. One afternoon, the owner of the building stopped by, rare, unexpected. He thanked me, not emotionally, professionally. He spoke numbers: retention, yield, risk. Then he slid a bonus letter across the desk. I nodded, accepted, filed it. Money is not validation. Consistency is. Weeks later, a junior intern approached me, nervous, eager. He asked if snapping fingers was ever acceptable. I smiled, said only if you want silence to answer back. He laughed, then remembered it. The building continued breathing. Day after day, storms came, heat waves, network spikes. Everything held because foundations matter. Late one evening, I walked the 37th floor alone, lights low, glass clear. I could hear the hum, the invisible pulse. This floor used to scream with entitlement. Now it whispered productivity. I placed my hand against the glass, felt vibration. Life power does not announce itself, it supports. I left the floor, returned to the core, checked the dashboards, all green. Somewhere far away, someone waited on slow internet, learning patience. The hard way. The city slept, the tower watched. And I understood something simple. The world does not reward noise. It rewards alignment. When everything finally works perfectly, ask yourself, who stopped interfering? The funny thing about power is that it never misses itself, only people do. By the time winter arrived, the tower had settled into a new identity, not louder, not flashier, just efficient. Efficiency looks boring from the outside, but inside it feels like relief. I started coming in later, not because I worked less, because emergencies stopped happening. Systems stayed within tolerance. People followed process. Respect became routine. One morning, I received a facilities report from Tulsa. Different building, different city, familiar name. The report mentioned recurring outages, cooling issues, bandwidth complaints. Nothing actionable, just patterns. I closed it. Some lessons need time. On the 37th floor, the new tenant expanded. More racks, more staff, more load. The building absorbed it without complaint, because it was designed to. A junior engineer asked me once how I learned to think this way. I told him buildings are honest. They do exactly what you ask, not what you mean. If you starve them, they fail. If you listen, they last. Near the end of the year, a holiday event filled the lobby. Music, lights, laughter. Security smiled. Maintenance joked. Executives waited in line. Everyone waited. No priority, no entitlement. That was the real win. Later that night, as I shut down my station, an alert blinked. Not critical, informational, unauthorized access attempt. Wrong badge, wrong building. I recognized the name, the snapper he was visiting, interviewing, hoping the system denied him. Politely, cleanly. I did nothing, the building handled it. I left through the lobby, tapped my access green. Outside, the city breathed cold air. Cars passed, lives moved. I Realized something standing, their justice did not arrive as revenge, it arrived as balance. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered, things simply worked. That is the ending most people never notice, because silence does not trend, stability does not shout, but it endures. I walked away knowing the truth, respect. It's not requested, it is engineered, and once it is built, it does not tolerate interference. The loudest mistake in the room is always made by the person who never learns who built the room.